I'd like to call the Monday, June 11th, 2018 Blue Springs Planning Commission meeting to order. And before we begin, I think Mr. Mallon has an introduction.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We actually have two introductions. We have a new planning commissioner, Lakeisha Veal, who's joining us for the first time this evening. So we welcome her. And also Mr. Tom Cole, who is the new Director of Community and Economic Development for the city. Started a couple of weeks ago, joining us tonight. So we welcome them aboard and glad that they're here.
Welcome aboard ourselves on behalf of all of us, the planning commissioners, and glad to have you join us up here.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for accepting it. And that's great. I mean, we really need to make sure our group's full. So with that, I would like to ask all of you to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, tonight we will have the consent agenda as item 1. Item 2 is the planned unit development final plan and site plan design review for Sunset Plaza, followed by other business. So with that, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the May 14th minutes as submitted by staff.
Okay, Commissioner Pugh.
Second.
Mr. Graham, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried on the consent agenda. Item 2 is the planned unit development, like I mentioned, on Sunset Plaza. And Mr. Jury, it's all yours.
Commissioners, before you today is a application to
Microphone, please.
There it is.
Thank you.
Before you today is an application for the PUD final plan and site plan design review for an amendment to the Sunset Plaza PUD. And I'll get over to the site here. So the property is located on the south side of 40 Highway, about 500 feet west of 7 Highway. It's zoned general business, and there's 3 lots in question currently, and it's about 4.5 acres in size. Currently existing on site, there are, on the 3 lots, the northeast corner lot has an existing ATM. The northwest corner lot has a pad site that has a couple businesses in there, and then the main lot, lot 1, has the main building with the strip retail center. And these were all approved back in 1987 to 1995, that time frame. Fazoli's, the lot next to it, was also included in the Sunset Plaza PUD, but is not part of this request at this time. But on lot 1, it's a 42,000 square foot multi-tenant commercial building. Lot 3, the northwest corner lot, is where Pancho's Restaurant and Advanced America Cash is, and that's about a 3,500 square foot building, and then the ATM drive in that northeast corner that I said earlier. So the developer is actually asking to approve an amendment to this approved plan back from the 90s, and this amendment will actually remove the ATM in this corner. I'll pull this up. In the northwest corner, the ATM will be removed and a fast food restaurant to be placed in its stead. Also, the building area of the strip retail center will be removed, and a access drive connecting 40 to Sunset Avenue will be placed in its stead as well. Those 2 are the main items that are being changed. Some building elevations to the existing buildings will also be reskinned or facaded in this process as well. Planning Commission does need to review this since it is a change in the approved uses, especially for Lot 4. and going from ATM to fast food restaurant. And staff does believe that this is just a minor deviation, which allows it to go through the amended final plan rather than amending the concept plan, since it actually is a decrease in total building square footage with the removal of the building and the smaller addition than the removal of the fast food restaurant. And it doesn't impact the road network, the public road network, significantly. It's only a right-in, right-out on 40, and Sunset Avenue is just a minor street with a limited access or an access drive that was already there, that they're moving. So. Going through some of the phasing on this, the lot 1 with the retail center will be demolished first, and then at some date to be determined in the future, the fast food restaurant would be built and completed. As for the building massing requirements, this does meet all setbacks for lot 4. I won't touch on the existing buildings, lots 3 or 1, because those are existing non-conforming, and whether or not they meet standards, those can remain as such as long as they're not enlarged. Lot 4 does meet all the setbacks and standards for pad site buildings. It meets the building coverage as well as the height. They're proposing a 22-foot tall building and it also meets those setbacks that I mentioned. The vehicle access, this proposal does retain all the existing drives, also the cross-access easement between Fazoli's and this property. It retains the 40 highway drives as well as the existing Sunset Avenue drives that were mainly one of them was for truck access. They are removing one truck access and moving it a little bit farther west to complete that access through the building, and also to align it better with the White Oak Marketplace development to the south. I will mention for parking that the existing buildings have all the required parking. The new fast food restaurant building will have less parking than required. They are required to have 21 spaces, and they only have space to provide 12 spaces. So there's a shortage of 9 parking spaces. So the UDC does allow this, and staff will require a condition that prior to building permit issuance of lot 4, the fast food lot, a shared parking agreement between lots 1 and 4 must be submitted to community development. And this allows the surplus from lot 1 to be counted towards lot 4. There is some pedestrian access comments I'll mention. There is a public sidewalk required along the portion of new development along lot 4. The sidewalk is not required where existing development has already occurred. There is also sidewalk connection alongside the addition in the access drive aisle. There will be some increase in pedestrian activity through where the building was in that demolition process. On top of that, there is a bus stop location and the future senior housing proposed on the White Oak Marketplace project to the south. That staff is requiring a sidewalk to connect from Sunset into the property. And in order to do that, the first proposal was to bring the sidewalk up and around past the dumpsters, but staff thought that was not the best placement for that sidewalk, and staff has the condition that this sidewalk must move to the demolition area so that it connects closer to where the preferred route would be. And the condition saying that unless grading will not allow it, then they can go through the other location that was previously approved or previously proposed. So prior to issuance of occupancy for Lot 4, sidewalk along 40 must be installed, and prior to the issuance of occupancy for Lot 1, that sidewalk connection to Sunset must be installed. As for landscaping, the only required landscaping is mainly on Lot 4, since it is the new build. All the additional landscaping is really at the developer's discretion. So the landscaping on Lot 4 is all that I'm going to look at today. And the basis behind that is it's just the only new development that we're looking at. All the rest is existing, and they're not changing it by more than, or increasing the square footage by more than 25%. So with that, I will say that the buffer requirement is a buffer type B, and that requires a minimum of 15 feet along 40, 15-foot wide buffer along 40, and the lot is only 104.5 foot deep, and so this takes up about 14% of the property. And so Planning Commission does have the ability to reduce this buffer requirement if it takes up more than 10% of the property. And in this case it does. So the applicant is actually proposing a 10-foot wide buffer along 40 instead of the 15, but they are increasing the plant units to 50 plant units per 100 linear feet rather than the normally required 45 plant units. And so if Planning Commission is okay with that, that is one of the staff conditions to approve that change in the landscape buffer requirement. As for lighting, it does meet all the standards currently, and they are utilizing most of the existing, if not all the existing, lighting on site. And then as far as signage, I will mention that they do need to go through a master sign plan since there's multiple tenant spaces, and any retail center that has multiple tenant spaces must go through a master sign plan before they can be approved for any sign permits in the future. On to the actual building elevations. And so the proposed, this is a picture on the screen. It's a picture of the existing strip retail center. And not a lot of changes, just some updates to the front, some of the ephes to be repaired, painted, leaving a lot of the brick, the existing brick, and leaving that to stay. Same thing with the back, not much change along the rear facade that's facing Sunset. Where the most change on the large building on Lot 1 is in the demolished area, and so these two elevations show that. The space between the two buildings where the demolished building is. So what they're going to do is they're going to actually take out the walls and put back, or build it back with concrete blocks to match the existing. The main area that is actually does provide some variation is the I guess the east facade of the west building, and on Lot 1, and there is some glass in that location that will provide a little bit of variation to that facade. Not as much on the other side. The existing pad site where Ponchos and Advanced America is, they are providing some repair to the existing facade and repainting, but minimal changes to that one. And this is the elevations for the new building, and they are providing quite a bit of, or mainly, brick stone facade with some glass and awnings. There is a canopy with some seating in the front of the building, and staff does believe that this meets the intent of the non-residential design guidelines. One of the other things I'll mention, pad site buildings are required to have 30% transparency at the street level, and they were able to meet that with 30.6% transparency at ground level, so 0 to 12 foot tall. And they have a parapet that will screen any rooftop equipment, and any ground, as usual, ground or wall-mounted equipment should be camouflaged or screened as well. They did provide a elevation of the proposed trash enclosure, so that at least will be screened with a wall that matches the primary structure. Beyond that, staff does recommend approval with 6 conditions, and I'll stand for any questions.
Do the commissioners have any questions? Mr. Billups?
I actually have questions in 3 different areas. We'll start with what you've got on the screen. Is this the actual building design, or will it change depending on what the restaurant is as we go forward? I'm assuming we're not going to.
I'll let the applicant answer that.
Yes. Hello. So that's much louder than that.
Would you
My
state
name
your
is
name?
Brianna McKenzie, and I'm with Davidson Architecture and Engineering, and I'm
I'm
here.
sorry, the first name,
Brianna McKenzie.
Brianna McKenzie.
Sorry.
And who are you with again?
Davidson Architecture and Engineering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is the actual design of the building. The only thing that would possibly change is potentially like the colors of the signage, which isn't really shown up there anyway, and then the width of the building might change, but the square footage would stay the same. So those would be the actual materials that we'd be proposing.
Okay.
Okay, another question?
Yes. Sorry.
Right ahead.
When we remove this piece out of the middle of the building and create the street, and it looks by the plan, and I realize this is a private street, so there are some standards here that we don't have to meet, but it looks like it gets narrower as it gets closer to Sunset. And is it wide enough when it gets to Sunset for what it needs to be?
It looks like it's about 25 feet wide, if I'm reading that measurement correctly, right there. And a private drive only needs to be 24 to have enough room for 2 cars to pass.
But what if you had a car there and you had a truck going into that truck bay? Because I'm assuming that loading dock is still going to end up there. That loading dock is not being removed if I'm...
No. I don't know if the applicant can touch on how long those trucks might be.
I can a little bit. When we get further into design development, we will look at the turn radius of those trucks just to make sure it is actually feasible. If it has to be widened, we'll widen it. So
Well, I mean, it obviously the trucks have been going in and out of there all the time, but there was never through traffic before, so I'm just concerned about that becoming congested with a truck trying to get in or out of that loading dock. I'd actually like to see the loading dock go away now that it's going to be facing even a private street, but that's probably beyond our...
I don't know if I can really answer that question specifically on behalf of the owner, but I think it would really depend on what tenant goes in there.
Sure.
I
I just want to make sure there's enough width there for
like a truck to park
and a
not
car.
block. Yeah. I agree with you. We can definitely take a look at that. I think at the moment we would just have to limit the truck size that would be able to actually back into there. It'd be like, I think maybe like a FedEx sized truck could fit there, but not much more at the moment, so.
And that was my 2 things, was the loading dock and the width of that street, so I think I'm...
Are there any other questions by the commissioners? Okay. Did you have any more that you'd like to share as the applicant?
I don't think so, really. I think Nathan did a really good job at explaining it. The only thing I might add is we have discussed with the city more in depth what sidewalk solution we would do in the back instead of the one that we have currently up here. So we're already in the process of changing that. So I know that's like one of the conditions of approval, but we're already doing that, so.
Do you know what size trucks go in there now?
The loading dock is probably at least 50, maybe 60 feet deep before it hits that drive.
Yeah. Right now, there's not a tenant in that space, so there are no loading trucks actually going into that area at all. Besides the New China restaurant that's there, they have, it's not like a huge truck, but they do have some deliveries, but that's not where the loading dock area is, if that makes sense.
And is there a reason why there's a loading dock if nobody uses it?
Well, there's not a tenant in that space right now. It's vacant. So that's why it's not being used at all.
Okay, but you're just making it available?
Correct. I believe like the preferred tenant to go into that space would be a future restaurant since it's on a corner. But I mean, the owner can only control that so much. If it's not going to be that, then it would never be used. If it was a restaurant, I think that would really be the only reason why they would use that loading dock. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Concerns? Okay. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Peel?
I move that PUD 05186407 be approved as submitted.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
With the 6 conditions,
With the
correct?
6 conditions.
Yeah,
yes.
we need to
Thank you.
state the 6 conditions. Is that Commissioner Cradoff?
Yes.
Made the second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. That motion was approved. All right, now do we have any other business? No other business?
No, we
Oh.
have no other new business.
Okay.
We do currently have 3 items scheduled for the June 25th Planning Commission. That'll be coming before you. A master sign plan, I believe a final plat, and a PUD site plan similar to what we had this evening. So we will be meeting on the 25th.
All right. So that next meeting will be Monday, June 25th. Commissioner Billups, I think you had your hand up.
I did. I just want to remind everyone, give everyone a little bit of an update. There's a lot going on downtown right now. This coming weekend, part of Main Street will be closed for the fest, or the grand opening of the brewery. So on Saturday, I believe it's just Saturday afternoon, is that right? Yes. Councilman Culpepper? Yes. So that will be, the street will be closed on this coming Saturday afternoon for that. Come down and have some food and try some new beer too. But and then the following weekend is Downtown Alive's Quirks and Canvas. So again, the street will be closed on Saturday so that everybody can come down and buy some art and sample some wine.
Beer to wine.
Beer to wine. Every weekend,
Or
we've got
downtown.
every weekend we've got something going on downtown. Please come down and see us.
Okay, sounds good. At least our downtown's active.
That's right.
That's right, I like that. So I talk about downtowns all the time, and look at ours as an example. So I think that's wonderful. Okay, is there any other new business? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Peel, do I hear? Commissioner Graham, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried to adjourn. Thank you very much and have a good evening.